Stop for just a moment, because something has quietly brought you here, and if you had arrived even a few seconds later, these words might not have reached your heart in the same way. There are moments that appear ordinary from the outside but carry the weight of eternity within them. This is one of those moments. Do not rush away. Not because I want to hold your attention, but because your spirit has been searching for an answer it has not been able to put into words. Long before you pressed play, long before this title caught your eyes, there was already a whisper moving through places you cannot see. Listen carefully. Someone you never expected is talking about you right now. Not the person you have spent sleepless nights thinking about. Not the one everyone assumes. Not even the person you have convinced yourself has forgotten your existence. Someone entirely different. And what is being spoken is quietly preparing a path that your human eyes cannot yet recognize. You may wonder, how could that be? Why would anyone be speaking about me when I have been living such an ordinary life? Because heaven often begins its greatest stories inside conversations that seem completely unrelated. Before a door opens. Before an opportunity appears. Before hearts reconnect. Before healing arrives. Before prayers become visible. Words begin moving between people. You have believed nothing was changing because you could not see movement. Yet movement has been happening where your eyes have never looked. Take a slow breath. Think about all the times you believed silence meant nothing was happening. You were mistaken. Silence has never meant absence. Sometimes silence is simply heaven working without announcing itself. There have been nights when you asked, God, are you still listening? There were mornings when you smiled in front of others while quietly wondering whether your future had forgotten your address. You questioned yourself. You questioned your purpose. Sometimes you even questioned whether your prayers had reached beyond your ceiling. Yet while those questions filled your heart, another conversation had already begun somewhere else. A name was mentioned. Your name. Not accidentally. Not casually. Not without purpose. At first it sounded like nothing important. Only a passing remark. Only a memory shared during an ordinary conversation. Only a simple question asked by someone who had no idea heaven was already using their words. But my beloved child. What seems small to human understanding often becomes enormous inside my timing. You have looked for dramatic signs while I have been arranging quiet moments. You expected lightning. Instead, I chose whispers. You expected crowds. Instead, I prepared one conversation. You expected instant answers. Instead, I began changing hearts one sentence at a time. There is a reason you have felt unusual lately. Have you noticed it? The moments when your heart suddenly becomes emotional without explanation. The unexpected memories. The strange feeling that something invisible is getting closer. The quiet anticipation you cannot explain. You thought it was imagination. It was not. Your spirit often notices movement before your mind understands it. That feeling has not come to confuse you. It has come to prepare you. Because if everything were revealed today, you would misunderstand the beauty of how carefully every piece has been placed together. Some blessings are not built in public. They grow where nobody thinks to look. Even seeds remain hidden before becoming trees. Even dawn begins while the world still believes it is night. Do not measure your progress by what people can see. Measure it by what I have already begun beneath the surface. Someone has been carrying thoughts about you that even they cannot fully explain. At first they dismissed those thoughts. They told themselves it was coincidence. Then your name appeared again. Then another reminder. Then another unexpected connection. Little by little, the conversation returned. And every time it returned, your name stayed longer. You have spent too much time believing you are forgotten. Who taught you that lie? Was it disappointment? Was it rejection? Was it the people who walked away without explaining why? Or was it simply the long seasons where nothing appeared to change? Those seasons have whispered many false stories into your heart. One of the loudest has been this: nobody thinks about you anymore. That was never true. There are people who have spoken your name with respect while you assumed they had erased you from memory. There are people defending your character without your knowledge. There are people remembering your kindness after years have passed. There are people quietly wondering what became of you. And there is one conversation unfolding even now. One conversation you never imagined could matter. If I allowed you to hear every word today, you would be overwhelmed. Not because every sentence is perfect, but because you would finally understand that I have been moving long before you noticed any evidence. Many people only believe after they see. Faith believes while waiting. That is why waiting has felt so difficult. Your heart has wanted proof. Yet heaven has been asking for trust. There is something beautiful about trusting what cannot yet be explained. Because explanation always arrives after preparation. Never before. My child. Do you remember the prayer you almost forgot? The one you whispered when nobody else was around? The one spoken with tears you quickly wiped away before anyone entered the room? You believed that prayer disappeared into silence. It did not. Every sincere prayer creates movement. Not always immediate movement. Not always visible movement. But movement nonetheless. Sometimes the answer begins inside another person's heart. Sometimes it begins with unexpected courage. Sometimes it begins with a conversation that appears completely unrelated. And sometimes it begins because someone who never paid attention before suddenly cannot stop thinking about you. This surprises even them. They cannot explain why your name returned. Why your face crossed their mind. Why your story suddenly feels important. They simply know something has changed. You have no idea how many invisible details I coordinate every single day. A delayed meeting. A forgotten message. An unexpected memory. A simple recommendation. A random photograph. A familiar place. A sentence spoken at precisely the right moment. People often call these coincidences. Heaven calls them appointments. There are appointments your calendar never recorded. Appointments between hearts. Appointments between futures. Appointments between prayers and their answers. That is why I tell you. Do not underestimate today's ordinary moments. One conversation can redirect an entire future. One unexpected sentence can restore lost hope. One honest heart can become the bridge between yesterday's pain and tomorrow's joy. Yet none of this happens instantly. You have become accustomed to immediate results. But I build lasting things patiently. Imagine someone assembling a masterpiece one small piece at a time. If you walked into the room halfway through, you might think nothing meaningful was being created. Only scattered pieces. Only unfinished work. Only confusion. But the artist already sees the completed picture. That is how I see your life. You see unfinished chapters. I see the ending. You see delay. I see preparation. You see closed doors. I see hallways you have not reached yet. You see loneliness. I see connections quietly approaching. This is why discouragement has tried so hard to find you recently. Have you noticed how easily doubt has appeared? How quickly fear has whispered impossible stories? How often you have questioned your own worth? Discouragement usually arrives before breakthrough. Not because darkness is stronger, but because change is closer than you realize. The enemy of hope always becomes loudest when hope is about to become visible. Do not mistake the noise for truth. Truth remains calm. Truth does not panic. Truth waits. And my truth over your life has not changed. You are still seen. You are still known. You are still loved. You are still being guided. Even when your emotions tell a different story. There is someone whose opinion about you has quietly transformed. Months ago, they misunderstood you. Weeks ago, they barely thought about you. Now, they find themselves speaking differently. The change did not happen because you forced it. It happened because hearts cannot resist truth forever. Truth is patient. Truth does not hurry. Truth simply continues shining until people finally notice what was always there. You have tried to defend yourself too many times. You have tried to explain yourself to people determined not to understand. You have carried burdens that were never yours to carry. Release them. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Sometimes your peace speaks louder than your defense. Sometimes your silence protects what words would only complicate. That is why I asked you to remain still during moments when you wanted to react. You thought stillness meant weakness. It was actually wisdom. You wanted immediate justice. I was preparing lasting restoration. Those are not the same thing. Immediate justice satisfies emotion. Lasting restoration transforms lives. You are entering a season where hidden stories begin surfacing naturally. Not through arguments. Not through revenge. Not through proving people wrong. Simply because truth has its own timing. And when truth arrives, it no longer needs anyone to defend it. Listen carefully now. The conversation taking place is not only about who you were. It is about who you are becoming. There is a difference. Many people formed opinions based on an older version of your story. But heaven has never judged you according to your past chapters. I always speak according to your purpose. Purpose changes everything. The person speaking about you is unknowingly describing pieces of your future. Even while discussing your past. Isn't that remarkable? Human beings often look backward while heaven quietly moves forward. That is why conversations inspired by heaven never stay trapped in yesterday. They point toward tomorrow. You have wondered why certain opportunities disappeared. Now imagine if those opportunities had remained. Would you have met the people waiting ahead? Would you have become stronger? Would your heart have grown wiser? Would you recognize genuine kindness after experiencing disappointment? Sometimes what leaves creates room for what belongs. Do not mourn every closed chapter. Some endings protect blessings that have not yet appeared. I know there were days when you believed you had been overlooked. Watching others celebrate while your own prayers seemed unfinished. Watching doors open for everyone else. Watching announcements. Watching celebrations. Watching dreams become reality for others while yours remained hidden. Comparison quietly exhausted your soul. Yet comparison only shows visible moments. It never reveals invisible preparation. The tree growing underground receives no applause. Yet without hidden roots, there will never be visible fruit. You have been growing roots. Deep ones. Stronger than you realize. That strength is about to matter. Not today. Perhaps not tomorrow. But sooner than you think. And when that moment arrives, you will understand why I refuse to rush what could only mature through time. There is another reason this unexpected conversation matters. The person speaking carries influence you have underestimated. Not influence because of fame. Not influence because of wealth. Influence because other hearts listen when they speak. One sentence from them changes how others think. One observation shifts perspectives. One honest testimony removes years of misunderstanding. You never expected that. Neither did they. Yet heaven often chooses unexpected voices. Remember this. I have never depended on obvious people to accomplish extraordinary things. Unexpected people often become unforgettable messengers. There is beauty in surprises that no human strategy could predict. If you could organize your own future, you would likely choose familiar faces. I often choose unfamiliar paths because they reveal my wisdom more clearly. So when you begin noticing unusual connections, do not dismiss them. When someone reaches out unexpectedly, pay attention. When a forgotten relationship suddenly reappears, observe quietly. Not everything unexpected comes from coincidence. Some moments carry fingerprints that only faith recognizes. You have asked me for signs. But signs rarely arrive wrapped the way people imagine. Sometimes the sign is simply peace where anxiety once lived. Sometimes the sign is courage returning after months of fear. Sometimes the sign is hearing your own name spoken with unexpected honor. And sometimes the sign begins inside a conversation you were never supposed to control. You are not responsible for forcing what heaven has already started. Rest. That word has been difficult for you. Rest. Not laziness. Not giving up. Resting in confidence that I continue working even when you cannot measure progress. Your value has never depended on constant striving. You do not have to chase every answer. Some answers are already walking toward you. Do you believe that? Or have disappointments made trust difficult? Be honest with yourself. Because honesty opens doors pride never can. If trust feels fragile, bring me your fragile trust. If hope feels small, bring me your small hope. I have never required perfect faith. Only willing hearts. There is something else I must tell you. The conversation unfolding is only the beginning. The words being spoken today will eventually reach ears that were never part of the original discussion. Truth has a remarkable way of traveling farther than lies. Slowly. Patiently. Quietly. Yet powerfully. You may never know every detail. You may never hear every sentence. And that is all right. You do not need complete information to receive complete guidance. You only need today's step. Tomorrow already belongs to me. Do not steal tomorrow's burdens before tomorrow arrives. Carry today's peace instead. Because peace sees farther than panic ever could. There is one question I want you to consider before this moment ends. What if the breakthrough you have been praying for does not begin with you speaking, but with someone else speaking about you? What if your next chapter starts inside a room you have never entered? What if your name is opening doors while you quietly continue living ordinary days? Wouldn't that be just like me? Working beyond your sight. Preparing beyond your understanding. Loving beyond your expectations. And yet, what happened in that conversation was not the most surprising part. Because just after your name was spoken, someone else in that same place responded with words that changed the atmosphere completely. Those words have not reached you yet. But when they do, nothing about this story will ever look the same. Wait for. The silence that followed those unexpected words felt different. Not empty. Not uncertain. It was the kind of silence that settles over a room when every heart suddenly realizes that something important has just been spoken. My beloved child, there are moments when heaven does not need to raise its voice. A single truth, spoken at the right time, carries more power than 1,000 hurried explanations. The person who had quietly mentioned your name expected the conversation to move on. They thought everyone would simply nod and speak about something else. Instead, another voice interrupted. I don't know why, that voice said softly, but every time their name comes up, I feel there's more to the story than any of us understands. Those words surprised everyone present. Even the one who spoke them. For a brief moment, no one knew how to respond. Sometimes hearts recognize truth before minds can explain it. That is one of the gentle mysteries I have woven into creation. You have often believed that your story was defined by what people assumed about you. Yet assumptions are fragile things. They fade when honesty enters the room. I have never measured your life by rumors. I have never written your future according to misunderstandings. I have always seen the quiet choices no one applauded. The prayers no one overheard. The kindness no audience celebrated. The tears you wiped away before anyone noticed. Nothing offered in love is ever forgotten by me. While you wondered whether your efforts mattered, I was allowing invisible seeds to take root inside places you could not see. One kind word you spoke months ago still lives in someone's memory. One act of forgiveness you thought was insignificant became the reason another heart found hope again. One moment when you chose compassion instead of bitterness created a ripple whose destination you still do not know. Never underestimate what love accomplishes when no one is watching. The conversation continued. Someone remembered a moment from long ago. Another recalled something you had done that they had never fully appreciated until now. Slowly, the picture began to change. Piece by piece. Not because anyone was trying to rewrite history. Because truth was finally being seen from a different angle. That is often how restoration begins. Not through loud announcements. Not through dramatic confrontations. But through quiet clarity. You have spent so much energy worrying about what others think that you have sometimes forgotten the opinion that matters most. Mine. And my view of you has never been shaped by your worst day. It has always been anchored in the person I created you to become. Do not confuse your current chapter with your final destination. The road still stretches farther than you can imagine. The pages ahead contain mercies you have not yet experienced, friendships you have not yet discovered, and moments of joy that today's worries cannot predict. You have asked me many times, why has this season lasted so long? Because some hearts needed time to soften. Some lessons needed time to grow. Some doors could only open after others quietly closed. What feels delayed to you is often perfectly timed from heaven's perspective. Trust does not erase questions. Trust simply refuses to let questions become greater than hope. My beloved child, I know there are evenings when you replay old conversations, wondering if you should have spoken differently. Release those burdens. The past cannot be rewritten. But your future is still unfolding. I am not calling you backward. I am inviting you forward. Forward into peace. Forward into wisdom. Forward into a confidence that no longer depends upon human approval. Because when your identity rests in my love, the changing opinions of people lose their power to define you. There is another reason your name has returned to this conversation. It is not merely about remembrance. It is about preparation. Some people are being positioned to recognize the work I have already begun within you. They will not see perfection. They will see transformation. And transformation tells a far more beautiful story than perfection ever could. Do not be discouraged if progress feels slow. Mountains are carved by countless moments that seem too small to notice. Yet over time, the landscape is completely changed. The same is true of your heart. Every lesson. Every prayer. Every act of patience. Every decision to keep believing. Has shaped you more than you realize. One day you will look back and understand that the seasons you wanted to escape became the very seasons that prepared you to receive what was ahead. Nothing surrendered to me is ever wasted. Even the disappointments I did not prevent have become places where compassion has quietly grown within you. That compassion will comfort someone else. That wisdom will guide another traveler. That hope will become light for a heart still walking through darkness. Your story has never belonged to you alone. It has always carried the possibility of encouraging another soul. So do not hide the grace you have received. Let kindness remain your language. Let humility remain your strength. Let hope remain your companion even when certainty has not yet arrived. For the conversation that began with your name is still unfolding. More hearts will hear. More understanding will come. And in ways you cannot yet imagine, what began as a simple mention will become part of something far greater than anyone in that room could have anticipated. For even now, another unexpected person is preparing to speak. And what they reveal will connect hidden pieces of your story that have remained unseen until this very moment. The next voice did not rush to speak. For a while, they simply listened. They listened as your name continued to echo through the conversation, and every passing moment seemed to uncover another piece of a story that had remained hidden for far too long. My beloved child, there is a sacred difference between being noticed and being truly understood. Many people notice what you do. Very few take the time to understand why your heart carries the burdens it does. But I have always known. I have seen every silent sacrifice. I have counted every tear that no one else recognized. I have watched you choose kindness when bitterness would have been easier. Those choices have never disappeared into the wind. Nothing done with a sincere heart is ever forgotten in my presence. Then, without warning, the quiet listener finally spoke. I think we've all been looking at this the wrong way. The room became still again. Not because the words were loud, but because they carried unexpected weight. Sometimes the greatest turning points begin with the simplest sentence. No dramatic announcement. No overwhelming display. Only truth arriving exactly when hearts are ready to receive it. As those words settled into the room, something invisible began to shift. People who had once been certain suddenly became thoughtful. Questions replaced assumptions. Curiosity replaced judgment. Compassion quietly stepped into a place where misunderstanding had lived for far too long. This is one of the ways I work, my beloved child. I rarely force hearts. I invite them. I do not rush transformation. I patiently reveal truth until resistance slowly gives way to understanding. That is why you must never lose hope when change seems slow. The deepest roots grow where no one can see them. For so long, you have believed that your season of waiting meant your story had stopped moving. But heaven has never been standing still. While you focused on closed doors, I was preparing people. While you questioned the silence, I was shaping conversations. While you wondered if anyone remembered you, I was allowing your name to return at exactly the right time. You have asked me more than once, why couldn't this have happened sooner? Because every heart involved needed its own journey. Some needed humility. Some needed healing. Some needed wisdom. Some simply needed time. Timing is not delay when it serves a greater purpose. Never confuse my patience with my absence. The conversation continued, and someone recalled a moment involving you that almost everyone else had forgotten. It was not a grand achievement. It was not something that attracted applause. It was a small act of generosity. One that you probably believed no one had noticed. Yet years later, that single moment became the reason another person defended your character. That is how light works. It continues shining long after the one holding the lamp has walked away. You may never fully know how many lives your quiet faithfulness has touched. Do not underestimate the impact of consistency. The world celebrates loud victories. Heaven celebrates faithful hearts. Every choice to forgive. Every decision to remain honest. Every moment you refuse to become cold after disappointment. Those moments have written a testimony far more powerful than you realize. You have worried that people misunderstood your silence. Some called it weakness. Others called it distance. But I knew it was healing. Not every season is meant for explaining yourself. Some seasons are meant for becoming stronger. You cannot always bloom while constantly proving your worth. Sometimes you must simply grow. The person who had spoken first looked around the room and quietly admitted something they had never said aloud. I don't think we ever truly saw them. No one answered immediately. Because deep inside, everyone knew there was truth in those words. My beloved child, there are people who will only recognize your value after enough time has passed for their own hearts to change. Do not become bitter while waiting for understanding. Bitterness closes the very doors that grace is preparing to open. Choose peace. Again and again. Not because others always deserve it, but because your own heart deserves freedom. As the conversation unfolded, someone asked a question that no one expected. What do you think they're doing right now? The room fell quiet once more. No one knew the answer. Yet each person imagined your life differently than before. Isn't that remarkable? Without you speaking a single word, perceptions were already changing. You have often believed everything depended on your effort. That unless you explained yourself perfectly, unless you defended every misunderstanding, unless you convinced everyone, nothing would ever change. But there are moments when I ask you to remain still because I am already speaking where you cannot. You are not alone in carrying your story. I have carried it from the beginning. And I know exactly when each chapter should unfold. Do not fear the chapters you have not yet read. The author has never abandoned the story. Even now, while these words reach your heart, I am weaving together moments that seem unrelated. A delayed conversation. An unexpected memory. A chance encounter. A quiet realization. A gentle change of heart. None of them appear extraordinary on their own. Together, they become part of a design too beautiful to understand all at once. That is why faith walks one step at a time. Not because the destination is uncertain, but because every step reveals exactly what is needed for that moment. My beloved child, I want you to carry this truth with you today. Your worth has never depended on how loudly the world applauds you. It has never depended on how many people understand you. It has never depended on whether every misunderstanding is corrected. Your worth has always rested in the love with which I created you. Nothing can erase that. Nothing can reduce it. Nothing can take it away. The conversation that began unexpectedly has not reached its conclusion. In fact, it has quietly spread beyond that single room. Someone who was never present has just heard your name for the first time in a long while. What they are about to remember, and the decision they are preparing to make because of that memory, will begin a chain of events that no one involved could possibly foresee. And that is where the next part of this story begins.